last presentation, and I know your time here has been so rich and full with the scientific proof of what we have been hearing throughout the ages from the great masters. Just at the end of this last talk, I was reminded of a couple of things my teacher said to me. He would often ask people where they come from. And so if I said California and I was leaving, he said, "Oh, very good for California. Good luck for California." And I thought that was just sweet until I realized he was actually pointing to the goodness that had happened to us there with him would naturally spread to all those people in our homeland. I see now it's not limited to the people in the particular country you come from or state. Just in your own willingness to follow your inherent curiosity, whether that takes you into scientific exploration or into inner spiritual exploration, it's really no difference, because you end up with the same meeting of this mystery, and we can dissect it and thrill at the dissection, and we are continuously humbled by it. Another thing he would say, which I also can testify is true, he said, when you wake up to yourself, your enlightenment is retroactive. And this, of course, really ties right into what we just heard. And in my experience, I discovered that my memories changed. It's as if I had visited myself from the future in the past. I still had the same basic narrative, but it was flavored, well, by redemption. It was a recognition of grace that was clearly apparent, so that even when I would bring up a memory that was particularly disturbing, I was aware of a field of grace, field of presence, field of silent awareness. So much so that I cannot say that I wasn't aware of it at that time. It was not an overlay from the future. I can only remember that if I was aware of it, I wasn't giving it its due. I wasn't honoring it. And really that's what I want to speak to you about this evening. I mean, you've certainly heard enough from everybody. I was reading the catalog and just was thrilled at what's in the catalog. The teaching, the impossibility of separation is already in the culture. It's not just a subculture, it is in the culture. And that's thrilling. But I made notes. I thought I would be at the podium, so I figured I would have to have notes. It seems to go with it. And I wrote some notes. This is my presentation. Those of you who know me know that this is not my usual style, but I love shifting styles, because in shifting styles we get more opportunities to discover what doesn't shift. And really was the essential teaching that my teacher, my guru, gave to me. When I came to him hungry for an end to my personal suffering, he said many things to me. The most impactful was to stop searching. In that moment of overcoming my fear to stop suffering, I mean, yes, in a way, to fear to stop suffering, because that was my identity. in a moment to stop following my definition of who I am, what's happened to me, what I want to happen to me, I could discover what is here. And in that, then, he asked me to discover, is it ever absent? And I am happy to invite you to this same discovery. He said the most simple way to make this discovery is to tell the truth about what changes and to tell the truth about what, in your experience, doesn't change. When he met his teacher, Ramana Maharshi, he was looking for God. He had had many experiences of Krishna and Ram and Sita and visions and dancing, and he wanted them to stay. And I know everyone in this room has had experiences of expansion and perfection and clarity and love. And then we have experiences of losing that. And usually what gets us to the spiritual search is some desire for an experience of truth to stay. When he went to Ramana, he said, I want to see if you can show me God. And Ramana said, gods that come and go are useless. Find out what doesn't come and go. And that stopped him in his tracks. And he stopped me in my tracks. And I'm inviting you to stop in your tracks, at least for this moment, our moment together. So my notes, I just wrote some words down, since this is, is this the last meeting of the formal part of the conference? Yeah, so I know that you are saturated with experiences and brilliance and genius of the presenters. I just want to recall what actually allowed you to be able to be here this weekend, to receive from these different presenters and from each other. And that is this essential and undefiled truth of wonder that is the nature of recognizing yourself as being. I can remember as a little child, very young, I suppose, recognizing I am. And the shock of that, I am, me is. And the wonder of that, and the fear of that. And following that, the attempts to define, well, who am I? What am I? And of course, with education and parents and religions and spiritual movements, I collected lots of definitions of who I am. But somehow I couldn't find a definition that could give me back that wonder. When my teacher asked me to tell the truth about what comes and goes, and in that, what doesn't come and go, I discovered that this wonder to be is still here. And I know that to be true for every one of you. I don't know that it's true for everyone on the planet. I went into a prison and I saw it was true for Kinney and some other people there. So I know that circumstances don't determine it. But you have given your time, your attention this weekend to really delve into what points you to this mystery of yourself. So that wonder is here. I salute it, I bow to it, and I encourage you to honor it. There are so many ways that we can overlook it in our sophistication, in our conceptual thinking. But in a moment, especially a concluding moment, we can simply surrender to it. It's here, It's alive, and it is conscious of itself. I also wrote down awe and curiosity. It's all part of wonder. And then I wrote down life and love and vigilance. I've been speaking to people after meeting my teacher for a little over 20 years now. And I've realized how easily our thinking minds corrupt the most precious words. So God is clearly corrupt by our culture, by what we've done with it, by what others have done to us in God's name. So I don't usually use the word God. Consciousness has also been corrupted by what we think consciousness is, by how we limit consciousness, how we call certain things consciousness and other things not consciousness. Self is clearly corrupted, because we have a higher self and a lower self and a middle self, and a good self, a bad self, enlightened self, unenlightened self. And they're all at war, of course, all jockeying for position. So if we throw away that word, at least temporarily, awareness, yes, levels of awareness then divides awareness into fragments. Love is a word that I really like using because it's so unscientific. But when I use it, I am not speaking of the feeling of love. The feeling of love comes and goes. But I have discovered that no matter what feeling is present, if you're willing to open to that feeling without following the narrative that may be attached to it, you discover spacious, open wonder, which to me is no different from love. But finally, the word I use the most, and what I want to speak to you about or hear from you about, is life. When Papaji gave me this assignment to find out what comes and goes, I could see quite easily that my great experiences come and go. Also, my bad experiences come and go. My experience of my body comes and goes. It comes when I wake up in the morning. It goes when I drop into deep sleep. My definitions of myself come and go. My evaluations of my goodness or badness or intelligence or stupidity come and go. Thoughts, all thoughts come and go. All emotions, events come and go. But life doesn't come and go. Whether I am aware of it or not, as in deep sleep, life is here, at least in the experience of this body-mind. If I'm having a thought denying life, it's still here. When this particular form has no life in it, life remains. It's not, it doesn't need this particular individual conscious form for its lifeness. And when I turn my attention in the deepest, most intimate way into discovering what it is that this universal pronoun I points to, I discover life. Life in a way that refuses to be defined and yet is inseparable from any definition. That it is unfragmented, regardless of the experience of fragmentation. That is unfazed by a formula of defining it perhaps as a carbon molecule that is continually humbling us and showing itself to be both more ancient and fresher than we can imagine. And this is here because who you are is life. What has appeared in life is a particular form that uses the pronoun I, with particular mind-body experiences that are only present because of life. And when the attention of a particular form reflects back to itself as who am I, it discovers finally, closer than a name, closer than a gender, closer than a mood, or even a particular experience. It finds a conscious life discovering itself as being. And the result of that discovery is also a discovery of what is called in Sanskrit Ananda. We could call it love. It is the joyous self-recognition of oneself. Satchit Ananda, consciousness, discovering itself as being and overflowing in the joy of that. So there is no separation, finally, in life and consciousness, and this that tonight I'm calling love. And this is the extraordinary good news. But the limitless good news, because as far as we know about life, it's limitless, is that this exploration of oneself as life is endless. Whatever is appearing, whether it is a very sophisticated talk or a primitive emotion, whether it's a feeling of oceanic bliss or a feeling of deep despair, there is the possibility to open to that and to discover its very substance is life. It has no substance separate from life. And it is life seeing itself as this substance, forming, dissolving, reforming, solid, immutable presence. Rick was asking me the other night about transmission. We are all transmitting all the time. And perhaps that's also part of the information we got from the last presentation. But we as human beings are transmitting to each other, to our universe, to our pets, to our plants, to our future, to our past. Mostly our human habit has been a transmission of anxiety and fear, because those are two crucial emotions for survival. But it seems to me we have reached a point in our human experiment where the very survival of ourselves as a species threatens our survival. So there's a crack where it's actually possible to take responsibility for what it is we are transmitting. In your willingness to recognize what is always here, to tell the truth about that, and to tell the truth about wanting something that is destined to pass, to stay, or wanting something that is destined to appear, to not appear, and to be willing to see the futility in those desires and to turn the freed attention to what is always here, then this particular life form that carries a particular name and gender and history becomes naturally a transmitter to all life forms of the truth of life, recognizing itself as conscious and overflowing in the abundance and limitlessness of life without needing any circumstance to reflect that, and recognizing the reflection present in all circumstances. So when Kinney was up here speaking, at the time I went into that prison, I was speaking a lot in Boulder, Colorado, speaking to very privileged people, people who had a lot of relative freedom, people who had control over their lives and how they spent their leisure time. And then I would go into this particular prison and meet with people who didn't have relative freedom, didn't have that control. In fact, Boulder was a kind of heaven and Inglewood was a kind of hell. And yet, both in heaven and hell, the extremes of our experience, there was the same question. Who am I? What are we here for? Where is grace? And my support from my teacher and from his teacher, from your own heart, your own wonder, your own presence here, is that there is full capacity for you, exactly as you are, to discover yourself as the fullness of life. Kinney and some other prisoners were the proof of that I was able to bring back to a very privileged group that actually caught fire from those who were in prison. So we may feel that we're imprisoned by our circumstances or our bodies or our history. But Kinney and you, if you are willing to inquire into the truth of yourself, living proof of what is possible for us as individuals, for us as a collective, and for us as life conscious of itself, in form, out of form, through form, mysteriously present. It's very sweet to sit in silence together. I often start my meetings in silence, but this evening, 5 minutes to go, let's spend it just sitting together, not meditating, not doing something, not getting something, just allowing our bodies to receive, our minds to receive, our histories to receive, our past to receive, our future to receive, in a way we don't, in this moment, need to figure out. That we can just close our eyes and be together. I'll time it, and in about 5 minutes, I'll begin speaking again. As you sit here with your eyes closed, you can simply be aware of what is present. Perhaps there is a feeling, sensation, an emotion or not, doesn't matter. Can also be aware of the awareness that recognizes a feeling, sensation, or an emotion. In a moment when we open our eyes, we will recognize that sensations change, feelings change, emotions change. But the awareness that all phenomena, eyes open, eyes closed, appear in, is this always present in your experience? And simply by the willingness to inquire and discover and tell the truth, you do discover, and it is always deeper. Now as we open our eyes, so we're aware of lights and sounds, a different state perhaps. And in a moment, when we walk out the door, we recognize scenes change. What hasn't changed? What remains? What is not subject to coming and going? Tonight I'm calling it life. Tonight I'm calling you life. And I greet you as life. Thank you for your attention.